The chairman, Nigeria Guild of Doctors, Bauchi State Chapter, Dr. Hassan Garba, laments the spate of industrial actions in the country's health sector when compared to other countries. He says government needs to inject fresh ideas on how to handle health delivery in the country.
Truthfully, even if it is water that is flowing in a certain direction and you keep putting breaks along the way, the flow will not be good, there will be a damming effect. The same thing in the health sector. It's like water flowing, it's teamwork. Once you have any break in that team activity called delivery of Medicare, you're definitely going to have a lot of problems. And primarily, the entire system is geared towards just one thing: deliver health to all. If I may quote another phraseology, health for all. It's as simple as that. You have any break in that aspect, in any part of it, then the health sector suffers. And sometimes the suffering will be afterward. It may just start now, but why it stops, you may never know. Well, the industrial action actually is a bothersome issue because in Nigeria in particular, it has been a recurring decimal. It is the one thing that you can be rest assured, you can be very, very sure that within any given 24 months, there must be an industrial action in the health sector in this country. And it's quite unfortunate. In fact, this figure I mentioned about 24 months, in recent times, it has been much shorter than that. And the unfortunate thing, like I said earlier on, these things are a domino effect, have a domino effect. In our country, unfortunately, if you look at the demographics, Nigeria has the highest occurrence and recurrence of industrial action in the health sector than any other country in the world. It's quite unfortunate. For a country that boasts to house and hold 1/6 of the entire human black race on earth, we shouldn't have that. Because if you're going to compare to the land mass of Africa, Nigeria doesn't have 1/6 the land mass of Africa. We have a highly dense, population density. As of last week, if I remember the figures correctly, our population is hitting about 198 million. That is one place where the health sector must be robust and functional as to be expected.
Dr. Hassan says to prevent industrial actions in the sector, the perception held that doctors are only concerned about their take-home pay has to change. He maintains that health workers need conducive environment to work.
We've been in environments where a medical worker will go to work on Monday and may not see the roof of his house till Tuesday or Wednesday. It is not a question, even if there are shifts, funny enough, because there are some cases where I want to stay and participate in helping that client, that patient. I could learn from it and I could contribute to it. So the issue of it's time for me to close does not even arise. It's in the heart, not just in the brain. That is one thing with Medicare. If you don't have the heart, you will not be able to do it well. You have to have both the brain and the heart to get it done. But unfortunately, the heart aspect is being crippled by you're not being happy. You ask for this, it is not there. You ask for this, it is not there. You ask for that, it is not there. You want this within seconds, they tell you, oh, that's the public sector now. You have to send it, write a request to so-so office. That office will endorse to that office. And before you know, the patient is even gone. Deceased. So the work environment itself, is it one that the medical worker will say, I'm happy working in this environment?
At an expanded National Economic Council in March, the Minister of Health had disclosed that Nigeria has made little or nothing in its healthcare delivery.
When we look at maternal mortality, under 5 mortality, level of malnutrition, immunization coverage, antenatal care attendance, level of HIV burden, level of TB, including the pick-up rate for tuberculosis. The statistics are not too pleasant. And one of the major reasons why the health sector has under-delivered has to do with the level of funding of the health sector. When compared to many other countries, we have persistently over the years underfunded the health sector. And because of this chronic underfunding, the health sector has underperformed. But what is really frightening about the health sector in Nigeria is the level of out-of-pocket expenditure. About 70% of Nigerians will have to pay out of pocket when they are ill. And this is the most challenging aspect of the Nigerian health sector.
You discover that when you want to deliver Medicare, and quality Medicare, not mediocre Medicare, you have to spend a lot of money. We have the mistake of thinking that health is cheap. No, it is not cheap. It's extremely expensive if you have to get it done right. Unfortunately, the psyche of our people, since before around independence till today, the thinking is health is cheap, but it's not cheap because the government is subsidizing a lot of it in the public sector. In the public sector. And that is why you will see people saying that, oh, when you go to the private facilities for Medicare, they are quite expensive. If you go to the public facilities, they are less expensive. And we're beginning to realize now that A is becoming equal to A on both sides. The figures are now beginning to compete with each other comfortably. The figures, the rates, the bills are almost the same nowadays.
For the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, the industrial action embarked upon by JOHESU is not genuinely founded, but born out of rivalry.
If you look at it, JOHESU has always been on strike, year in, year out, simply because JOHESU is in the first place an illegitimate and illegal association of people with similar interests. There is nowhere in the world that you have the army and the civil defense forming a union together, because they are mutually exclusive entities. So in the healthcare industry, there is no basis for the pharmacists, for the nurses, and the physiotherapists and what have you to come together. Their disciplines are not the same. They are simply coming together in order to form a platform to fight against the doctors. And these kind of things can only happen in our setting of Nigeria or in African setting, where you have objectivity. You don't get these kind of things happening. So there is no way NMA will be in support, because there is no objectivity in the whole agitation. It's simply trying to see what the doctors are getting and how can we also get the same thing. They don't look at the laws, they don't look at the books, they don't look at job description, they don't look at what are they trained to do in a given setting. I think the government needs to just face these problems fairly. The citizens of this country are always at the receiving end because of this senseless kind of actions by our colleagues in the medical sector. So one of the things we are always saying is to outsource the services of anybody that feels is indispensable. And that will go a long way. This can be done by outright privatization or public-private partnership. This has been done in most parts of the world, and there is peace. And I also want to assure you that we as doctors have always been the drivers of the healthcare industry, and we have always worked with the members of the JOHESU in private setting without disharmony. So why does it happen in the public sector? This is one of the questions I would like to pose at you. There is no rationality in what the JOHESU is asking. JOHESU use the NMA as its yardstick. If NMA get this, we should also get that. But that's not a scientific way of making an agitation. We will simply remain in a vicious cycle. And I don't share the same conviction with you that if JOHESU is on, this will stop. JOHESU are not indispensable as far as I'm concerned. It all depends on the ability of the government to tackle this problem